When Sarah Mitchell's car broke down on a desolate country road in western Montana, she thought finding shelter at James Cooper's farmhouse would be her salvation from the approaching winter storm. The former Silicon Valley executive turned rural. Homesteader seemed like a kind soul, offering her safe haven from the bitter cold. But when she stepped into his barn that evening, she discovered that this humble farmer was hiding a secret that would change not just her life, but the lives of countless others across the nation. What started as a chance encounter between a stranded traveler and a mysterious farmer would unravel into one of the most remarkable stories of hidden genius, corporate espionage, and unlikely heroism in American history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The November wind howled across the Montana plains as Sarah Mitchell's Tesla Model S finally gave up its desperate struggle against the approaching storm. The sleek vehicle's battery, depleted by hours of heating against the brutal cold, displayed its final warning before the screens went dark. Sarah's manicured fingers gripped the useless steering wheel as she watched snowflakes begin to accumulate on her windshield. Her GPS had stopped working an hour ago, somewhere after she'd left the main highway trying to find a shortcut around. A jackknifed semi. Now, as the early winter dusk descended, she found herself on an unmarked dirt road with no cell service and rapidly dwindling options. Sarah pulled her designer coat tighter, its expensive wool suddenly seeming inadequate against the Montana winter. The dashboard thermometer had shown 12 degrees before dying, and the temperature was dropping fast. Through the thickening snow, she could barely make out what looked like lights in the distance, perhaps a mile away across the rolling fields. A particularly fierce gust rocked her car, and Sarah made her decision. Grabbing her phone, laptop bag, and the emergency blanket she'd thankfully kept in the trunk, she began trudging through the growing snowdrifts toward the distant lights. Her Italian leather boots, perfect for Silicon Valley boardrooms, quickly proved useless against the rural Montana terrain. The lights gradually resolved themselves into what appeared to be a farmhouse and several outbuildings. As Sarah approached, she could see smoke rising from a chimney, and warm light spilled from windows, partially obscured by the swirling snow. A hand-painted sign reading Cooper's Farm creaked on its chains near what appeared to be a long driveway. Sarah's teeth were chattering by the time she reached the farmhouse porch. The building was old, but well-maintained, with the solid, timeless feel of a place that had weathered countless storms. She knocked on the heavy wooden door, trying to stop her hands from shaking. The door opened, and Sarah found herself face to face with a man in his early 60s, dressed in well-worn work clothes. His weathered face showed surprise at finding a clearly out-of-place executive-type woman on his doorstep, but his eyes were kind. "Good Lord, miss, you must be freezing. Come in, come in." He stepped aside, gesturing her into the warmth of the house. "I'm James Cooper, and you look like you could use a hot drink." The farmhouse interior was simple but comfortable, with a crackling wood stove and furniture that spoke of utility rather than fashion. Sarah introduced herself as James bustled about, preparing coffee and finding her a warm blanket. "My car died about a mile back," Sarah explained, gratefully wrapping her hands around the steaming mug. "I was trying to get around an accident on the highway, and my GPS led me down some back roads before quitting entirely." James nodded sympathetically. These storms can come up fast out here. You're lucky you found us. There's not much else. Around for miles, and this one's supposed to get worse before it gets better. As Sarah warmed up, she took in more details of her surroundings. Despite the rustic appearance, she noticed some incongruous elements: a stack of technical journals on a side table, what looked like complex mathematical equations scribbled on a notepad near the phone. Before she could process these oddities, the back door opened, bringing a blast of cold air and a woman approximately James's age. "James, the generator's acting up again in the barn. I think it needs your..." The woman stopped short, seeing Sarah. "Oh, hello there. I'm Margaret Cooper." "Margaret, this is Sarah Mitchell. Her car died up on Ridge Road. Sarah, my wife Margaret." James made the introductions, then frowned at the news about the generator. "I'd better check on that before the storm gets any worse. The animals need their heat." "I'll fix up the guest room," Margaret said. "You'll have to stay the night, dear. No one should be out in this weather." Before Sarah could respond, a series of sharp beeps emanated from what appeared to be an old radio set in the corner. James and Margaret exchanged a quick glance that Sarah couldn't quite interpret. "I need to check that generator," James said, his tone slightly different. "Sarah, would you mind giving me a hand? I could use someone to hold a flashlight, and I'd feel better showing you where everything is in case you need anything during the night." Something in his manner had shifted, becoming more focused, more alert. Sarah found herself following him out into the storm, across the yard to a large barn. The wind had picked up even in the few minutes she'd been inside, and she was grateful for the heavy work coat Margaret had insisted she wear. James unlocked the barn door with a key from his pocket, then paused. "Miss Mitchell, before we go in, I need to ask you something. That Tesla you were driving, it wouldn't happen to be one of the new prototype models with the experimental battery management system, would it?" Sarah felt her blood run cold, and not from the storm. "How could you possibly know that?" James's expression was unreadable in the darkness. "Because if it is, then your car didn't die by accident, and you're not out here by chance." He pushed open the barn door, revealing not the expected farm equipment and livestock, but a sophisticated laboratory filled with advanced computing equipment and prototype machinery. "Welcome to the real Cooper's farm, Miss Mitchell. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about why you're really here." Sarah stared at the hidden lab, her mind racing. The man standing before her was clearly not just a simple farmer, and she realized with growing amazement that she might have stumbled upon exactly what she'd been secretly searching for all along. The barn's interior hummed with the sound of sophisticated equipment. Holographic displays showed complex molecular structures rotating in the air, while banks of custom-built computers ran calculations that Sarah recognized as advanced AI algorithms. In one corner, what appeared to be a prototype quantum computer sat in its cooling apparatus, quietly processing data that could revolutionize multiple industries. "You're him, aren't you?" Sarah whispered, understanding dawning. "You're James Cooper, the James Cooper who disappeared from Silicon Valley 15 years ago after that breakthrough in quantum computing. Everyone thought you were dead." James's expression remained careful, neutral. "That depends entirely on who's asking and why. The storm outside is very real, Miss Mitchell, but I suspect your presence here isn't nearly as accidental as it appeared." The sharp beeping they'd heard in the house sounded again, this time from a sophisticated security console near the barn entrance. James glanced at it, then back at Sarah. "Those are perimeter warnings. Right about now, 3 black SUVs are making their way up Ridge Road, following your car's tracker. The question is, are they coming to rescue you, or are they coming to find what you found? Sarah's hand tightened on her laptop bag, her carefully constructed cover story crumbling in the face of James Cooper's direct assessment. The man who had revolutionized quantum computing theory before vanishing without a trace was standing before her, and he'd already seen through her supposed chance arrival. The wind howled outside the barn, but inside the tension crackled like static electricity. Sarah Mitchell realized she had a choice to make, and whatever she decided in the next few moments would have consequences far beyond this storm-swept Montana farm. Margaret's voice came through on an intercom system. "James, they're moving faster than we expected. 7 minutes at most." James Cooper studied Sarah with eyes that now showed none of the simple farmer's warmth. In their depths, she saw the brilliant mind that had once threatened to reshape the technological landscape before choosing to disappear. "Time to choose, Miss Mitchell. Who are you really? And what happens when those SUVs reach my farm?" The storm raged outside, but inside that hidden laboratory, Sarah Mitchell stood at a crossroads. The simple story of a stranded executive was about to become something far more complex, and the night was just beginning. Through the barn's high windows, snow swirled in the darkness, while inside, 2 people from very different worlds faced each other across a gulf of secrets and hidden agendas. The question wasn't just who Sarah Mitchell really was, but what would happen when her pursuers arrived at this farm that was clearly much more than it appeared. James Cooper waited for her answer, his weathered farmer's exterior now barely concealing the brilliant mind beneath. Sarah realized that her next words would determine not just her fate, but potentially the future of technological advancement itself. The storm had brought her to this moment, but what happened next would depend entirely on what she chose to reveal. The security system beeped again, more urgently this time. Time was running out, and Sarah Mitchell needed to decide whose side she was really on. The night was about to become very interesting indeed. Sarah's mind raced as she processed the rapidly evolving situation. The sophisticated laboratory surrounding her stood in stark contrast to the rustic farm exterior, its advanced equipment humming with barely contained power. Through the barn's windows, she could see the storm intensifying. Snow now falling so heavily it created white walls in the security light's glow. "I work for the Office of Technology Assessment," Sarah finally said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Or at least, that's what my official credentials say. The reality is more complicated." James Cooper's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted slightly. Margaret's voice came through the intercom again. 5 minutes now. They're not slowing down for the weather. Sarah reached into her laptop bag, drawing out not a computer, but a thin metallic case. 2 months ago, someone began trying to access classified quantum computing research through supposedly secure channels. The intrusions were sophisticated, almost invisible, almost. "And you traced them here," James said, his tone neutral, but his eyes sharp. "To a farm in the middle of nowhere." "No," Sarah corrected, opening the case to reveal a complex electronic device. "We traced them through here. Your systems were being used as a relay point by someone else, someone who knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of." The security console beeped again, and James walked to a bank of monitors, typing rapidly. Satellite imagery appeared, showing 3 black SUVs making their way through the storm toward the farm. "Those aren't your people, are they?" Sarah shook her head. "My team is still in Silicon Valley. I came alone because I needed to warn you. Someone is using your past work as a framework for something dangerous. The quantum encryption protocols you developed before disappearing, they're being weaponized." The barn's lighting suddenly shifted, panels in the ceiling revealing sophisticated scanning equipment. Margaret's voice came through again. "Incoming. Vehicles are running dark. No visible government markings." James moved to a different console, his fingers flying over the keys. "The storm works in our favor. They'll have limited visibility. No aerial support possible in these conditions." He glanced at Sarah. "Assuming you're telling the truth." Sarah placed her device on a nearby workbench. "This contains everything we've gathered on the intrusions. The coding signature matches your old work, but it's been modified, twisted into something that could compromise every major security system in the country." The barn's temperature seemed to drop as James examined the device without touching it. "My work was theoretical. The quantum systems needed to implement it didn't exist 15 years ago. They do now," Sarah said quietly, "and someone has been very busy building on your foundation." A new alarm sounded, and Margaret appeared in the barn doorway, closing it quickly against the wind. She carried what looked like military-grade communications equipment. 3 minutes, they've split up, 2 vehicles continuing on the road, one cutting across the north field. James nodded as if this confirmed something. Not government. They'd maintain formation in these conditions. He turned to Sarah. "Last chance. If you're lying, now's the time to come clean." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Check the device. The validation codes are encrypted with your original algorithm, the one you never published, the one only you would recognize." James hesitated for a moment, then picked up the device. His fingers moved across its surface in a complex pattern, and a holographic display sprang to life. Lines of code scrolled past, and Sarah saw his expression change as he recognized his own work. "Margaret," he said without looking up. "Initiate. Protocol 7. Margaret moved to a different console, entering commands. Throughout the barn, subtle changes began to occur. Equipment powered down or shifted into new configurations. Hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing sophisticated defensive systems. "You turned your farm into a fortress," Sarah observed, watching the transformation. "I turned it into a sanctuary," James corrected. "After what happened in Silicon Valley, I needed somewhere I could work without interference, somewhere I could ensure my research wouldn't be misused." The security feed showed the SUVs getting closer. They moved with professional precision despite the storm, their dark shapes barely visible through the swirling snow. "They'll have thermal imaging," Margaret said, monitoring multiple screens. "Standard tactical approach pattern." James finished examining Sarah's device. "The intrusion patterns are genuine. Someone's been very clever, using my old systems as a skeleton key." He looked at Sarah. "But that doesn't explain why you came alone. The government doesn't send solo agents into situations like this." "Because I'm not just an agent," Sarah replied. "I was your student at Stanford before you disappeared. Sarah Mitchell was my married name. Back then, I was Sarah Chen. I was in your quantum theory seminar the day you walked out and never came back." Recognition flickered in James's eyes. "Third row, always ask questions about practical applications." His expression hardened. That makes this either more credible or an extremely sophisticated operation. The perimeter alarms sounded again. The SUVs were now within half a mile of the farm. Margaret's hands moved across her console, activating additional systems. James, they're carrying heavy equipment. Thermal signatures suggest multiple armed individuals. They're not here to talk, Sarah said. They're here to take your research. And they don't care who gets hurt in the process. The same people who drove you into hiding 15 years ago haven't stopped looking for you. James moved to a central control station, his farmer's demeanor completely gone now. In its place was the focused intensity Sarah remembered from his Stanford days. Margaret, seal all external access points. Activate the electromagnetic screening. The barn's atmosphere changed as invisible fields of energy sprang to life. Sarah felt her phone go dead in her pocket. Outside, the approaching vehicles would find their electronics suddenly unreliable. Your quantum encryption work, Sarah said, watching James work. It wasn't just theoretical, was it? You actually built it. I built something better, James replied, not looking up from his controls. Something that could protect against the very weapons they're trying to create from my old research. He paused, fixing Sarah with a penetrating stare. The real question is, why come warn me? Your government handlers must have had other plans. Because I remembered something you said in that last seminar, Sarah answered, about how technology wasn't good or evil, but its purpose was determined by the hands that wielded it. I couldn't let them turn your work into a weapon. The SUVs were now visible through the storm, their headlights cutting through the snow as they approached the farm. Margaret's voice was calm but urgent. 1 minute to contact. James, they're deploying ground teams. James made a decision. Sarah, if you're really here to help, I need to know now. What we've built here goes far beyond quantum encryption. It could change everything, or destroy it all if it falls into the wrong hands. Sarah moved to stand beside him at the control station. I spent 15 years wondering why the brilliant professor who inspired me to pursue quantum mechanics suddenly vanished. Now I know. You saw what they would do with your discoveries. Through the barn's windows, dark figures could be seen moving through the storm, approaching from multiple directions. The farm's external lights caught glimpses of tactical gear and weapons. Margaret, James called, activate the outer defenses, non-lethal options only. He turned to Sarah. Last chance to choose a side. Once we start this, there's no going back. Sarah looked at the approaching forces, then at the incredible laboratory surrounding her. The scared executive seeking shelter from the storm was gone. In her place stood a woman who had finally found what she'd spent years searching for. They'll breach the perimeter in 30 seconds, Margaret reported, her hands steady on her controls. James watched Sarah, waiting for her answer. In the background, sophisticated defense systems hummed to life, preparing to protect the extraordinary secrets hidden within this ordinary-looking barn. Through the storm's fury, the confrontation that had been 15 years in the making was about to begin. Sarah Mitchell, or Sarah Chen, as she had once been known, stood ready to help protect the very things she had been sent to find. The peaceful night had transformed into something else entirely. A simple farm in Montana was about to become the center of a conflict that would determine the future of technological advancement itself. And 3 people in a hidden laboratory prepared to face the forces gathering in the storm. The first sound of breaking glass came from the farmhouse. Through the security feeds, Sarah watched black-clad figures move with tactical precision, their thermal signatures bright against the cold night. James's fingers flew across his control panel, and suddenly, the farm's external lights went dark, plunging everything into storm-swept darkness. "They've cut the main power," Margaret reported calmly, switching to backup systems. 3 teams, 4 operators each. Standard infiltration pattern. Sarah moved to a secondary console, her old training surfacing. They're expecting to find a simple farm with a hidden basement lab. They don't know what they're really walking into. James nodded grimly. That's always been our advantage. He activated a sophisticated communications system, initiating countermeasures. Margaret sealed the tunnels. Throughout the property, hidden systems whirred to life. What looked like ordinary farm equipment began shifting, revealing sophisticated defensive capabilities. The approaching teams suddenly found their tactical communications filled with static. Their electronics are degrading faster than expected in this weather, Margaret observed, monitoring multiple screens. The storm's amplifying the interference field. A crash echoed from somewhere above, followed by the sound of boots on wooden floors. The farmhouse was being systematically searched. Sarah watched James carefully, seeing not the reserved farmer, but the brilliant scientist who had once revolutionized quantum theory. "Your defensive systems," she said, understanding dawning. "They're not just conventional technology, are they? You've actually done it. You've developed practical quantum field manipulation." "Theory made real," James confirmed, making minute adjustments to his controls. "But not the way they expected. Not weapons or encryption, but protection. Shields. Barriers they can't breach, because they don't understand the underlying principles." On the security feeds, the infiltration teams were encountering their first real obstacles. What appeared to be solid ground became inexplicably impassable. Electronic equipment failed in patterns that defied normal interference. The storm itself seemed to respond to unseen influences, creating visibility barriers that no thermal imaging could penetrate. "Contact in the North Tunnel," Margaret announced. "Team trying to breach the secondary entrance." James's expression tightened. "They found it faster than they should have." "Sarah, what exactly did your agency know about this place?" "Only that. It was a potential source of quantum computing breaches," Sarah replied, watching the feeds. "But someone else has been feeding them information. Someone who knows more than they should." A new alarm sounded, and Margaret's hands moved quickly across her console. "James, they're using sonic mapping, getting echoes from the underground sections." "Impossible," James muttered. "Unless..." He turned to Sarah. "The device you brought, it wasn't just proof of intrusion, was it? They followed its quantum signature." Sarah's eyes widened as realization struck. "They let me find you. Everything. The highway accident, the GPS failure, it was orchestrated." The barn's defenses hummed as another team approached its perimeter. These operators moved differently, showing familiarity with the type of resistance they were encountering. Their equipment was more sophisticated, designed to penetrate quantum interference. "Second wave," Margaret reported. "These aren't standard tactical teams. They've got quantum shielding, early generation, but effective." James's fingers danced across his controls, making rapid adjustments. "Sarah, if you're really on our side, I need access to that device you brought. Its signature is giving them a way through our defenses." Sarah reached for the metallic case, but a sudden burst of energy from above made her dodge back. A section of the barn's roof had become transparent, revealing a drone hovering in the storm, its sensors piercing their concealment. "They're adapting faster than they should," Margaret said, her voice tense. "These aren't corporate mercenaries or government agents. This is something else." James moved to a secured cabinet, removing what looked like an old rifle but hummed with obvious technological enhancement. Because they're not here to steal the technology. They're here to steal its creator. The drone's energy signature suddenly changed, and James called out, "Down!" as a pulse of concentrated force shattered through their outer defenses. The barn's quantum shields held, but the impact was far stronger than anything they'd prepared for. "Quantum pulse weapons," Sarah gasped, picking herself up. "But those are still theoretical. Nobody has a working prototype." "Someone does," James replied grimly. "Someone who's been studying my old research for a very long time." He handed the rifle to Margaret, who took up a position covering the main entrance. "Sarah, that device, now." Sarah retrieved the case, but hesitated. If they're really using quantum pulse weapons, they're not just trying to capture you. They want to eliminate any competition. My agency, they don't know what they're really dealing with. Another pulse hit their shields, stronger than the first. Throughout the barn, equipment sparked and fluctuated. The storm outside seemed to intensify, responding to the quantum energies being unleashed. "James," Margaret called urgently, "these readings, they're building to something big, some kind of resonance cascade." James took the device from Sarah, his expression showing recognition as he examined it more closely. "It's not just a tracking system, it's a key." His fingers moved across its surface in complex patterns. "They used you to deliver the one thing that could breach our quantum shields." Sarah watched in horror as the device began to pulse with an energy signature that matched the attacking forces. "They built it from your original designs. That's why it could interface with your systems. But they don't understand the full implications," James said, already working to counteract the device's effects. "Quantum resonance isn't just about power. It's about harmony, balance. Push too hard." A massive energy surge from above interrupted him. The drone was now surrounded by a visible field of quantum distortion, its pulses growing stronger, with each blast against their shields. "North shield failing," Margaret reported. "South holding but degrading. They're establishing a resonance pattern that's breaking through our defenses." Sarah moved to James's side, her years of studying his work suddenly relevant. "Your shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern, don't they? That's why they couldn't breach them before, but now they're using the device's signature to match. The rotations." James nodded, his hands moving faster across his controls. "Help me reverse the polarity. If we can't stop the resonance, maybe we can redirect it." Outside, the storm had become something else entirely. The quantum energies being unleashed were affecting weather patterns, creating a maelstrom of snow and lightning that no natural storm could produce. The attacking teams found themselves facing not just technological defenses, but environmental chaos. "Energy levels critical," Margaret warned. "They're pushing their weapons beyond safe limits. If that resonance cascade continues to build, they'll tear apart the quantum fabric of this entire area," James finished, "and they either don't know or don't care." Sarah quickly grasped the implications. A quantum rupture of that magnitude. It would make the Trinity test look like a firecracker. Through the barn's remaining sensors, they could see the attacking teams falling back, clearly not prepared for the forces they'd unleashed. But the drone remained, its quantum pulse weapons still building power, pushing toward a catastrophic overload. James made a decision. Margaret, initiate Protocol 0. Sarah, help me configure these frequencies. We're about to show them why I went into hiding in the first place. As the storm raged and reality itself seemed to bend under the quantum forces being unleashed, Sarah realized that the night's true battle was just beginning. The simple farm had become ground zero for a conflict that could reshape the very fabric of existence. The peaceful evening that had started with a stranded traveler seeking shelter had evolved into something far more dangerous. Now, in a barn that concealed world-changing technology, 3 people worked desperately to prevent a quantum catastrophe that could destroy everything for miles around. Their sophisticated defenses had been breached, their sanctuary threatened. But James Cooper had one last card to play. As midnight approached and quantum energies warped the world around them, the true purpose of his years in hiding was about to be revealed. Protocol 0 initiated with a deep, resonating hum that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Throughout the barn, equipment reconfigured as hidden systems activated. The quantum shields shifted frequency, not to block the incoming energy, but to channel it in precise patterns. Sarah, take the auxiliary controls, James commanded, his hands flying. Across the main console. Match my frequency adjustments exactly. Margaret, prepare for power redirection. The drone's energy pulses had reached critical levels, its quantum weapons pushing toward overload. But as Sarah watched James work, she realized he wasn't trying to stop the cascade. He was guiding it, shaping it with an expertise that spoke of years of preparation for exactly this scenario. The storm, Margaret called out, monitoring environmental feeds. It's responding to the quantum fluctuations, creating some kind of coherent pattern. Through the barn's reinforced windows, Sarah could see the swirling snow and lightning forming, distinct geometric shapes. The natural storm had become a quantum phenomenon, its energies interacting with their shields in ways that defied conventional physics. Your research, Sarah said, understanding dawning as she matched James's frequency adjustments. It wasn't just about encryption or computing. You found a way to manipulate quantum fields on a macro scale. Better than that, James replied, his focus absolute. I found a way to harmonize them, to take quantum chaos and create order. His fingers danced across the controls. Margaret, full power to the northern array. Hidden emitters emerged from what had appeared to be ordinary farm equipment. The drone's energy pulses met new resistance, not blocking force, but adaptive resonance that transformed its destructive power into controllable patterns. They're trying to overload our shields, Sarah observed, watching the energy readings spike. But you're using their own quantum weapons against them. Energy can't be destroyed, James said, making minute adjustments. But it can be redirected, reshaped, transformed. That's what they never understood about quantum mechanics. It's not about power, it's about harmony. The attacking teams had pulled back to their vehicles, clearly unnerved by the phenomenal weather effects their weapons had unleashed. But the drone remained, its quantum pulses now creating visible distortions in the air around the barn. Central, shields at 200% capacity, Margaret reported. Quantum resonance approaching critical threshold. James nodded as if this was expected. Sarah, Prepare to invert your frequency patterns on my mark. Margaret, activate the ground array. The farmland around the barn transformed as hidden quantum technology revealed itself. What had looked like ordinary irrigation equipment began emitting precisely tuned energy fields that interacted with the storm above, creating a complex three-dimensional grid of quantum forces. You've turned the whole farm into a quantum reactor, Sarah realized, watching the patterns emerge. Not for power generation, but for protection, James finished. A sanctuary where quantum technology could be developed safely without the risk of weaponization. Until now, the drone's energy signature suddenly shifted, its weapons reconfiguring to match their defensive patterns. Someone in its control system was adapting quickly, showing dangerous familiarity with quantum principles. James, Margaret called urgently. These attack patterns, they're based on your original theorems. Someone's using your own research to counter our defenses. Not. Counter, James corrected, his expression grim. Catalyze. They're trying to force a quantum cascade, using my own techniques to trigger a chain reaction. He turned to Sarah. This isn't about capturing the technology anymore. They're trying to eliminate it completely. Sarah's hands moved across her controls, helping maintain the delicate balance of energies. But a quantum cascade of this magnitude, it would destroy everything within miles, including their own teams. They don't care, James said quietly, because this isn't about acquisition anymore. It's about erasure, eliminating all evidence that this level of quantum manipulation is possible. The drone's attacks intensified, its energy pulses now precisely targeted to disrupt their defensive harmonics. The storm responded with increasing violence, quantum-enhanced, lightning creating impossible patterns across the sky. James, Margaret warned, resonance levels are approaching theoretical limits. The quantum fabric is starting to tear. Through the barn's sensors, they could see reality itself beginning to distort. The quantum forces being unleashed were affecting fundamental forces, creating localized anomalies in space-time. This is what you were afraid of, Sarah said, understanding finally reaching her. Why you disappeared. You saw this potential for destruction. James nodded, his hands never stopping their intricate adjustments. Quantum technology isn't ready for the world, or the world isn't ready for it. The power to reshape reality itself. Humanity needs time to develop the wisdom to use it properly. The drone launched another series of precisely calculated pulses, each one designed to amplify the growing quantum instability. But James's controls moved with practiced certainty, transforming each attack into part of a larger pattern. They think they're forcing a cascade, he explained, but they're actually helping us complete a quantum circuit 15 years in the making. Margaret, initiate the final sequence. The farm's hidden systems began to pulse in perfect synchronization. The storm above, now completely transformed by quantum forces, formed a massive energy matrix that encompassed the entire property. Sarah, on my mark, reverse all frequencies simultaneously, James commanded. We're going to show them why quantum harmony is more powerful than quantum destruction. The drone's attacks reached their peak intensity, its weapons pushing toward inevitable overload. But as Sarah watched James work, she saw not desperation, but absolute certainty. Every attack, every energy pulse was being woven into something larger. Now, James called, and Sarah reversed her frequencies just as Margaret activated the final systems. The quantum forces threatening to tear reality apart suddenly found themselves caught in a precisely engineered resonance pattern. The drone's energy weapons, instead of triggering a catastrophic cascade, became part of a quantum symphony. The storm above transformed from a chaotic maelstrom into a coordinated display of natural forces working in perfect harmony with artificial quantum fields. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered, watching the energy patterns stabilize into something entirely new. The threatening drone, its weapons now caught in the quantum harmony, hung motionless in the transformed storm. "This is what I've been working toward," James said quietly. "Not weapons or encryption, but true quantum harmony. The ability to take chaos and create order, to transform destructive force into creative energy." The attacking teams watched in amazement as their quantum weapons were neutralized, not by superior force, but by perfect resonance. The storm, now under complete quantum control, created a display of natural and artificial energies working in perfect concert. Margaret's monitors showed the quantum fabric stabilizing, the threatening tears in reality sealing themselves as harmonious patterns replaced destructive interference. The farm had become the eye of a storm that demonstrated the true potential of quantum technology, not for destruction, but for transformation. Through the barn's windows, Sarah could see the drone's weapons powering down, their energy completely absorbed into the quantum harmony James had created. The storm above continued its choreographed dance, now a demonstration of technology working in perfect concert with nature. The night's battle had been won not through superior firepower, but through deeper understanding. James Cooper had spent 15 years preparing not just defenses, but a way to transform quantum conflict into quantum cooperation. The disabled drone hung motionless in the quantum-stabilized storm, its sophisticated weapons rendered harmless by forces its operators couldn't comprehend. Through the barn's monitoring systems, Sarah watched the attacking teams retreat to their vehicles, clearly unsure how to proceed against defenses that turned their own energy against them. "They're pulling back," Margaret reported, tracking thermal signatures through the swirling snow. All three teams regrouping at their vehicles. She paused, studying new data. "James, we're getting unusual readings from the northern perimeter." James's hands moved across his control panel, adjusting the farm's quantum harmonics to focus on the indicated area. "More teams?" "No," Margaret replied, frowning at her screens. "Some kind of quantum signature, but different from their weapons. Almost like a transmission," Sarah finished, recognizing the pattern. "They're trying to communicate." The barn's sophisticated sensors detected a carefully modulated quantum pulse, too precise to be weapon fire, too complex to be simple interference. James studied the signal's characteristics, his expression thoughtful. "It's encrypted," he said, "but using my old protocols. Very few people would know how to do that." His fingers danced across the controls, making subtle adjustments to their quantum field. A holographic display materialized in the center of the barn, showing a familiar face that made Sarah's breath catch. "Dr. Elizabeth Chen," she whispered. "My doctoral advisor after you disappeared." The quantum projected image of Dr. Chen looked older than Sarah remembered, but her eyes held the same sharp intelligence. "James," she said, her voice clear despite the quantum transmission. "I'd hoped we'd never have to meet like this." "Elizabeth," James replied, his tone neutral but alert. "I assume you're behind tonight's demonstration." "Not by choice," Dr. Chen answered. Things have changed, James. The quantum barrier you theorized, it's failing. We need your help. Sarah moved closer to the hologram, questions burning in her mind. Dr. Chen, you're working with them. The ones trying to weaponize quantum technology? Working against them, Elizabeth corrected. Or trying to. James, your disappearance bought us time, but they've been rebuilding your work from fragments. Without the underlying principles of harmony you discovered, they're creating something dangerous. James's hands never left his controls, maintaining the delicate quantum balance that kept their defenses active. The quantum pulse weapons they used tonight, that was just a fraction of what they've developed, wasn't it? They're calling it Project Cascade, Elizabeth confirmed. They think they can control quantum destruction on a massive scale. They don't understand they're dealing with forces that could tear reality apart. Margaret's monitors showed the attack teams maintaining their distance, but not leaving. They're waiting for something, she observed. This isn't over. No, Elizabeth agreed, her holographic form flickering slightly. Tonight was just a test. They wanted to confirm your location, see your defenses in action. The real attack comes. Later, Sarah studied her former advisor's transmission. How did you get involved in this, Dr. Chen? After James disappeared, you focused on theoretical applications, not weapons development. Because I recognized what was happening, Elizabeth replied. The same people who drove James into hiding began gathering fragments of his research. Without understanding the importance of quantum harmony, they're creating weapons that could destabilize the fabric of space-time itself. James made a subtle adjustment to their quantum field, strengthening the holographic connection. You could have reached out before this, Elizabeth. Why wait until they found me? Because I needed to be sure, she answered. Sure that you'd actually solved the quantum harmony problem. Tonight's demonstration proved it. The way you contained and transformed their attack, it was exactly what your original theories predicted. The storm continued its controlled patterns. Above the farm, a visible demonstration of quantum forces working in perfect concert. But Sarah noticed new energy signatures appearing at the edge of their sensor range. We've got movement, Margaret reported. Multiple vehicles approaching. From the east, much bigger than the initial attack force. Elizabeth's hologram showed concern. That's their main strike team. James, you have to understand, what they're planning goes beyond weapons. They think they can use quantum destruction to reshape reality itself. Playing God with forces they don't understand, James said grimly. The same arrogance that made me leave 15 years ago. Sarah moved to a secondary console, analyzing the approaching signatures. These readings, they're building towards something massive, some kind of coordinated quantum strike. Yes, Elizabeth confirmed. They've developed a quantum cascade initiator. They think they can control it, direct its effects. They're wrong. She looked directly at James. You're the only one who truly understands quantum harmony. Without your help, their experiments could tear a hole in reality itself. The barn's defenses hummed as James made ongoing adjustments, preparing for what was coming. What exactly are you proposing, Elizabeth? Help us stop them, she replied. Your work on quantum harmony. It's the key to preventing a catastrophe. The technology you've developed here, the ability to transform destructive force into controlled energy, it's exactly what we need. Margaret's screen showed more vehicles arriving, forming a perimeter around the farm. They're setting up a containment zone. multiple quantum energy signatures detected. You have maybe 30 minutes, Elizabeth warned. After that, they'll launch a coordinated quantum strike designed to overwhelm any defenses, even your harmony. Fields won't be able to contain that much energy. Sarah studied the tactical displays, seeing the methodical deployment of forces around them. They're not just trying to capture the technology anymore. This is about eliminating any trace that quantum harmony is possible. Because harmony proves their entire approach is flawed, James said, understanding in his voice. If quantum forces can be guided and transformed rather than just controlled and weaponized, it invalidates their entire program. Elizabeth finished. James, I have a team of scientists ready to help implement your quantum harmony principles on a larger scale, but we need your direct involvement, your understanding of the underlying theories. The storm above the farm continued its perfect patterns, but Sarah could see new energy signatures beginning to interfere at the edges. The approaching forces were already affecting the quantum fabric around them. Why should we trust you? Margaret asked, her hands steady on her controls. After 15 years of silence, you appear just as they launch their attack? Because I've spent those 15 years trying to prevent exactly this scenario, Elizabeth answered, working from inside, attempting to guide their research away from pure destruction, but I've failed. Without James's direct intervention, they're going to trigger something that can't be stopped. James studied the tactical displays, watching the forces gathering around his farm. The sanctuary he'd built, the peaceful life he'd created, was about to become the center of a conflict that could reshape reality itself. Sarah, he said quietly, you've seen both sides now. The weaponization they're pursuing and what's possible with true quantum harmony. What do you think? Sarah looked at her former advisor's hologram, then at the spectacular display of controlled and quantum forces above the farm. I think this is exactly why you went into hiding, not to prevent your work from being used, but to perfect it, to prove there was a better way. Through the barn's windows, they could see the attacking forces establishing positions. Their quantum weapons were more sophisticated than the first wave, designed for a level of destruction that even James's defenses might not be able to contain. The night's true battle was about to begin, not just for control of quantum technology, but for the very future of human understanding. The peaceful farm had become ground zero for a conflict that would determine whether humanity's first steps into quantum manipulation would lead to destruction or harmony. James Cooper studied the tactical displays showing enemy forces surrounding his farm, his mind already calculating possibilities. The quantum-stabilized storm continued its perfect patterns overhead, but new energy signatures were beginning to create interference at the edges of their protective field. Elizabeth, he said, addressing the holographic projection of his former colleague, if what you're saying is true, we need more details. What exactly have they developed? Dr. Chen's image flickered as she accessed secure data. They're calling it the Quantum Cascade Initiator. Imagine a quantum weapon that doesn't just destroy matter, but unravels the fabric of space-time itself. Sarah moved to a monitoring station, analyzing new energy readings from the approaching forces. These signatures, they're like nothing I've ever seen. The quantum resonance patterns are exponentially more complex than their first attack, because they're not just using fragments of my old research anymore, James observed, making continuous adjustments to their defensive harmonics. They've developed something new, something worse. Margaret's voice carried urgency as she monitored the perimeter. Multiple teams deploying what looks like quantum field generators. They're establishing some kind of containment grid around the property. Through the barn's sophisticated sensors, they could see teams of operators setting up advanced equipment at strategic points. The storm's quantum-enhanced lightning revealed glimpses of technology that shouldn't have existed yet. They've been busy, James noted grimly. 15 years of development unconstrained by ethical considerations or safety protocols. Elizabeth's hologram nodded. That's why I had to find you. They've pushed the technology too far, too fast. Without understanding the principles of quantum harmony, they're going to trigger something they can't control. Sarah studied the tactical feeds, her training helping her recognize patterns. They're not just containing us, they're creating some kind of quantum amplification field, using the containment grid to focus and magnify their weapons' effects. Precisely, Elizabeth confirmed. The Cascade Initiator requires massive amounts of quantum energy to function. They're turning the entire area into one giant quantum reactor. James's hands moved across his controls with increased urgency. Margaret, initiate secondary harmonic protocols. Sarah, help me reconfigure the defensive grid. We need to be ready for what's coming. The farm's hidden quantum technology responded, adjusting to new configurations. What had appeared to be ordinary agricultural equipment continued its transformation into sophisticated defense systems. Energy levels rising at all perimeter points, Margaret reported. They're charging their field generators. Estimate 15 minutes until they reach critical capacity. Elizabeth's transmission carried growing concern. James, you have to understand. The weapon they've built doesn't just destroy matter. It creates a cascading quantum reaction that breaks down the fundamental forces holding reality together. And they think they can control it, James said, understanding in his voice. Direct it, use it to reshape the quantum fabric according to their own designs. Playing God with forces they barely comprehend, Sarah added, watching the energy. Readings continue to climb. But why here? Why risk such a dangerous weapon just to eliminate your research? Because James's work proves their entire approach is fundamentally flawed, Elizabeth explained. Quantum harmony demonstrates that these forces can be worked with, not just controlled and weaponized. It invalidates their entire program. The storm above the farm maintained its perfect patterns where their quantum fields remained strong, but distortions were becoming visible at the edges. The enemy's containment grid was beginning to affect the very fabric of reality around them. Multiple quantum surge readings, Margaret warned. They're testing the containment field, probing for weaknesses in our defenses. James studied the energy patterns, his expression showing growing concern. They're not just trying to overpower our shields. They're attempting to create quantum interference patterns that will disrupt our harmonic frequencies. Sarah noticed something in the tactical data. These attack patterns, they're evolving, adapting to our defenses in real time. Someone in their operation really understands quantum mechanics. Of course they do, Elizabeth said quietly. They've had 15 years to study every scrap of research James left behind, to build on it, twist it into something he never intended. Through the barn's reinforced windows, they could see the enemy teams completing their preparations. The Containment grid was now visible as a faint geometric pattern in the air, creating a massive quantum cage around the farm. "James," Margaret called urgently, "these energy readings are approaching theoretical limits. The quantum fabric is becoming unstable, even with our harmonic fields active." James moved to a secured console, entering complex commands. "They're forcing our hand. If we maintain our current defensive posture, their containment field will eventually overwhelm our harmonics. We need to do something they're not expecting. You have a plan?" Sarah asked, recognizing the focused look she remembered from his Stanford days. "Always," James replied, activating new systems. "Elizabeth, you said you have a team ready to help implement quantum harmony principles on a larger scale. Where are they?" "Waiting," Dr. Chen's hologram answered. 3 miles east, monitoring the situation. "But James, there's something else you need to know. Something about who's really behind this attack." Before she could continue, Margaret's monitors showed a dramatic spike in energy readings. Multiple quantum surges detected. They're powering up their primary weapon systems. The air itself seemed to vibrate as the enemy's containment grid reached full power. Through their sensors, they could see reality beginning to distort around the edges of their quantum shields. "It's starting," Elizabeth warned. "Once the Cascade Initiator activates, you'll have minutes at most before the quantum reaction becomes self-sustaining." James's hands moved with practiced efficiency across his controls. "Sarah, prepare to reconfigure all harmonic frequencies on my mark. Margaret, ready the quantum pulse arrays. If they want to see what this technology can really do, we'll show them." The storm above the farm responded to his adjustments, its patterns shifting into new configurations. The quantum forces they had demonstrated earlier had been impressive, but Sarah realized they had only seen a fraction of what James's systems could do. "Remember what you taught us," Sarah said, taking her position at the auxiliary controls. "Quantum harmony isn't about opposing force with force. It's about transformation." James nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. "Exactly. They expect us to try to resist their quantum cascade. Instead, we're going to show them why harmony is more powerful than destruction." Through their tactical displays, they could see the enemy's weapon powering up. The Quantum Cascade Initiator was visible as a distortion in space-time itself, reality warping around its impossible energies. The peaceful farm that had hidden revolutionary technology for 15 years was about to become the testing ground for two competing visions of humanity's quantum future. In the balance hung not just their lives, but the very fabric of reality itself. The Quantum Cascade Initiator's activation sent visible ripples through space-time, reality distorting like waves on a pond surface. Inside the barn, James Cooper's hands moved with practiced precision across his control panels, making minute adjustments to their harmonic frequencies. "Primary containment field at full power," Margaret reported, monitoring multiple displays. "Their quantum grid is creating some kind of focused amplification effect." Sarah watched the tactical feeds, seeing the enemy's weapon system charging to unprecedented levels. The energy readings are off the scale. They're pushing the quantum fabric beyond any tested limits. "Because they think they can control it," James said, his voice steady as he worked. "Direct it, shape it to their will." His fingers danced across the controls. They never understood that quantum forces aren't meant to be controlled. They're meant to be guided. Elizabeth's holographic projection showed growing concern. "James, the Cascade Initiator is designed to create a quantum reaction that spreads exponentially. Once it starts, even your harmonic fields won't be able to contain it. Through the barn's sophisticated sensors, they could see reality itself beginning to fray around the edges of the enemy's containment grid. The quantum-stabilized storm above the farm held steady within their defensive perimeter, but new distortions were forming at the boundaries. Multiple breach points forming, Margaret warned. The quantum fabric is starting to tear at the intersection. Points of their grid. James studied the energy patterns, seeing something in the chaos that others missed. They've made a fundamental mistake. By trying to contain and control these forces, they're actually creating the perfect conditions for harmonic resonance. Sarah moved to his console, recognizing patterns in the quantum fluctuations. The tiers in reality, they're forming in geometric patterns, almost like a lattice, James finished. A quantum framework we can use. Margaret, prepare to reconfigure all harmonic generators. Sarah, help me adjust these resonance frequencies. The farm's hidden systems responded to their commands. Sophisticated quantum technology shifting to new configurations. What had appeared to be defensive measures began transforming into something else entirely. Energy spike detected, Margaret called out. They're initiating the primary sequence. The quantum cascade initiator pulsed with impossible power, sending waves of distortion through their sensors. Reality rippled and bent as space-time itself began to unravel under the weapon's influence. Now, James commanded, his hands flying, across the controls. Inverting all harmonic frequencies. Margaret, activate the quantum pulse arrays. Sarah, match my adjustments exactly. Their defensive systems transformed, not fighting against the cascade effect, but embracing it, channeling it, reshaping it through precisely tuned quantum harmonics. The storm above the farm responded, its patterns shifting to match the new frequencies. "What are you doing?" Elizabeth's hologram asked, watching in fascination as James's technology began interacting with the enemy's weapon in unexpected ways. "Showing them what they never understood," James replied, making continuous adjustments. Quantum harmony isn't about resistance, it's about resonance. About taking destructive force and transforming it into something new. The enemy's containment grid pulsed with increasing power, trying to focus and direct the cascade effect. But James's systems were already adapting, using their own energy against them in ways they hadn't anticipated. "The quantum tiers," Sarah observed, watching the tactical displays. "They're not spreading anymore. They're realigning?" James nodded, his focus absolute as he worked. "The same principle I discovered 15 years ago. Quantum forces naturally seek harmony if given the proper framework. We're not fighting the cascade, we're helping it find its natural balance." Through their sensors, they could see the enemy teams reacting with confusion as their weapons' effects began behaving in unexpected ways. The reality-warping energies they'd unleashed were being caught in complex harmonic patterns, transformed from destructive chaos into organized resonance. "They're increasing power to the initiator," Margaret reported, "trying to overwhelm our harmonic fields with raw force." "Let them," James said calmly. "The more energy they feed into the system, the stronger our quantum harmony becomes. They're actually helping us complete a transformation they don't even understand." Elizabeth's hologram showed dawning comprehension. "The quantum lattice, you're not just containing the cascade effect, you're using it to create some kind of bridge," James finished. A quantum framework that demonstrates the true potential of this technology, not for destruction, but for transformation. The storm above the farm had become something entirely new, its patterns now reflecting the complex interaction of natural forces and artificial quantum fields. Lightning formed impossible geometric shapes. Snow crystals arranged themselves in perfect fractals, and reality itself seemed to dance to the harmony James had created. "Warning," Margaret called out. "They're charging the initiator beyond safety. Protocols. The quantum cascade is approaching critical threshold." But James remained calm, his hands steady on the controls. "Perfect. They're giving us exactly what we need. Sarah, prepare to synchronize all remaining harmonic frequencies. Margaret, bring the final arrays online." The enemy's weapon reached its peak power, reality-warping energies threatening to tear space-time apart. But as the cascade effect reached critical mass, James's systems engaged in perfect concert, creating a quantum symphony that transformed destruction into creation. "My God," Elizabeth whispered, watching through their sensors as the quantum fabric began healing itself, tears in reality sealing under the influence of harmonic resonance. "You've actually done it. You found a way to work with quantum forces, instead of trying to control them." The enemy teams watched in astonishment as their weapons' destructive energies were caught in an ever-expanding pattern of quantum harmony. The containment grid they'd established began resonating with new frequencies, becoming part of the very transformation they'd tried to prevent. "Their systems are failing," Margaret reported. "The initiator's power source is destabilizing under the harmonic feedback." James made final adjustments to their quantum field. They pushed too hard, tried to force quantum forces to obey their will. Now they're seeing why harmony will always be stronger than control. Sarah watched in amazement as the reality-warping energies of the quantum cascade initiator were transformed into something beautiful. The storm above the farm had become a visible demonstration of quantum harmony, natural and artificial forces working together in perfect concert. "The quantum lattice is self-stabilizing," she observed, reading the energy patterns. "The harmonic resonance is spreading beyond our defensive perimeter." Through their tactical displays, they could see the enemy teams falling back, their weapon systems failing as quantum harmony replaced quantum destruction. The containment grid they'd established was now helping to spread the very transformation they'd tried to prevent. "This is what I've been working toward," James said quietly, watching his life's work vindicated. "Not just defending against quantum weapons, but proving there's a better way to work with these forces." The barn's sophisticated sensors showed the quantum fabric stabilizing, reality itself healing under the influence of harmonic resonance. What had begun as an attempt to destroy had become a demonstration of creation, of transformation, of the true potential of quantum technology. Elizabeth's hologram showed both amazement and relief. "The scientific community needs to see this, James. They need to understand what's really possible when we work with quantum forces instead of trying to dominate them." Through the quantum-stabilized storm, multiple vehicles could be seen retreating from the farm's perimeter. The cascade initiator, its reality-warping energies now fully transformed by James's harmonic systems, sat silent and dark among abandoned equipment. "They're falling back," Margaret reported, tracking thermal signatures through the swirling snow. "All teams withdrawing to minimum safe distance. The quantum grid is completely destabilized." James continued making subtle adjustments to their harmonic fields, ensuring the transformation remained stable. Sarah, monitor the quantum lattice integrity. Any signs of regression or cascade effects? None, Sarah replied, studying the readings. The harmonic patterns are self-sustaining now. The quantum fabric is actually stronger than before, reinforced by the new resonance framework. Elizabeth's holographic projection showed a mix of relief and urgency. James, my team needs to document this. What you've demonstrated here, it changes everything we thought we knew about quantum manipulation. Through the Barnes' sophisticated sensors, they could see the effects of their quantum harmony spreading beyond the farm's boundaries. The storm above had become a visible demonstration of natural and artificial forces working in perfect concert. Multiple vehicles approaching from the east, Margaret announced. Different signatures from the attack force. These look like research vehicles? Elizabeth nodded. My team, the ones I told you about. Scientists who've been working to prevent a quantum weaponization. They need to see this, James. Need to understand what you've achieved. James studied the tactical displays, watching the new group approach. Your team may not be the only ones coming. What we've demonstrated here, there are people who will want to suppress this knowledge, not study it. Then we need to move quickly, Sarah said, understanding the implications. Document everything while the quantum effects are still visible. Prove that harmony is possible before they try to bury it again. Margaret's monitors showed more movement at the perimeter. The attack force is regrouping at their fallback positions. They're maintaining observation, but no signs of aggressive action. Because they're trying to understand what happened, James observed, making another adjustment to their harmonic fields. Their weapon didn't just fail. It became part of something they never thought possible. Elizabeth's team arrived, vehicles carefully approaching through the quantum-enhanced storm. Scientists emerged, carrying sophisticated monitoring equipment and looking with amazement at the visible effects of quantum harmony surrounding the farm. Dr. Chen, one of them called through their secure quantum channel. These readings, they're revolutionary. The quantum fabric isn't just stable, it's somehow stronger than baseline normal. James nodded at their instruments. Quantum harmony doesn't just prevent destruction, it enhances the natural stability of space-time itself. The more energy they fed into their cascade weapon, the more powerful our harmonic resonance became. Sarah helped coordinate the research team's efforts, ensuring they captured data from all aspects of the transformation. The quantum lattice structure you created, it's not just containing their weapons' effects, it's actually healing the damage they caused to the fabric of reality. Through their sensors, they could see the enemy forces maintaining their distance, clearly unsure how to proceed against technology that had so completely transformed their greatest weapon. The Quantum Cascade Initiator, designed to tear reality apart, had instead become part of a demonstration of reality's fundamental harmony. James, Elizabeth said urgently, we need to secure this data immediately. Once word gets out about what happened here, they'll try to discredit it, suppress it, anything to maintain their quantum weapons program. Let them try, James replied, his voice carrying quiet confidence. What we've shown here isn't just a defense against their weapons. It's proof that their entire approach is fundamentally flawed. Margaret's screens showed new energy patterns forming within their quantum field. The harmonic resonance is still evolving, creating some kind of networked stability effect. The research team's instruments confirmed it. The quantum harmony James had established wasn't just maintaining itself, it was spreading, creating a web of enhanced stability that strengthened the very fabric of space-time. This is what I've Been working toward, James explained, watching the patterns grow. Not just preventing quantum destruction, but showing how these forces can be used to protect and enhance reality itself. Sarah studied the data streams, her years of quantum mechanics training helping her grasp the implications. The containment grid they created, you used it as a framework for the harmonic resonance to spread, turned their own technology against their intentions. Elizabeth's team worked quickly, documenting every aspect of the quantum transformation. The scientific community needs to see this, she insisted, not just the theoretical possibilities, but practical proof that quantum harmony is achievable. Through the barn's windows, they could see the storm continuing its perfect patterns, now expanded to encompass the entire area. What had been meant as a weapon of mass destruction had become a demonstration of mass creation. More vehicles approaching, Margaret reported. Multiple directions, government markings. James nodded as if expecting this. The word is spreading faster than we anticipated. Sarah, help me adjust these harmonic frequencies. We need to maintain stability while demonstrating the full potential of quantum harmony. The research team's instruments captured everything. The quantum lattice structure, the harmonic resonance patterns, the strengthened fabric of space-time itself. Evidence that would be impossible to deny or suppress. They'll try to classify this, Elizabeth warned. Claim it's too dangerous for public knowledge. But what you've shown here is exactly what the world needs to see. Proof that working with quantum forces is better than trying to weaponize them. The government vehicles arrived, disgorging officials and scientists who stared in amazement at the visible effects of quantum harmony. Their own instruments confirmed what Elizabeth's team had already documented, a fundamental breakthrough in humanity's understanding of quantum mechanics. It's not just about preventing weapons, James said, watching their reactions. It's about showing there's a better way forward, a path that leads to creation instead of destruction. Sarah helped coordinate the growing crowd of scientists, ensuring their observations were properly documented. The quantum harmony effect, it's not just stable, it's teaching us something new about the fundamental nature of reality itself. The farm that had hidden revolutionary technology for 15 years had become ground zero for a new understanding of quantum physics. James Cooper's work, meant to be suppressed and destroyed, was instead transforming humanity's approach to one of the most powerful forces in existence. Through their sophisticated sensors, they could see the enemy forces finally withdrawing completely, their mission an ironic success. They had indeed changed the future of quantum technology, just not in the way they'd intended. The night that had begun with an attempt at destruction was ending with a demonstration of creation. The quantum harmony James had achieved wasn't just a defensive measure. It was a doorway to a new era of scientific understanding. Dawn approached Copper's farm, the quantum-stabilized storm creating spectacular light effects as the sun's first rays interacted with the harmonic field. Inside the barn, now transformed into an impromptu research center, scientists from multiple agencies worked to document and understand what they were witnessing. The quantum lattice is maintaining perfect stability, Sarah reported, monitoring the latest data streams. The harmonic resonance patterns are actually strengthening as they interact with normal space-time. James moved between various monitoring stations, helping teams understand what they were seeing. The key is in the interaction patterns. Quantum forces naturally seek harmony if given the proper framework. We're not controlling these effects, we're guiding them toward their natural state. Elizabeth's hologram conference now included several prominent physicists, their faces showing a mix of amazement and skepticism. James, what you've achieved here, it completely rewrites our understanding of quantum mechanics. We've got more company arriving, Margaret announced from her security station. 3 helicopters approaching from the northwest, military markings. Through the barn's sophisticated sensors, they could see the growing crowd of vehicles and personnel surrounding the farm. Scientists, government officials, military observers, all drawn by word of what had transpired during the night. The quantum harmony effect is spreading, one of Elizabeth's researchers reported excitedly, creating some kind of self-reinforcing stability field that actually strengthens normal space-time. James nodded, making minor adjustments to their systems. That's the real breakthrough. Not just preventing quantum destruction, but using these forces to enhance and protect the fabric of reality itself. Sarah helped coordinate the various research teams, ensuring all observations were properly documented. The transformed energy from their cascade weapon, it's become an integral part of the harmonic field. Their attempt at destruction is literally powering a new form of creation. Military officials approached the barn, their expressions serious but curious. "Mr. Cooper," their leader began, "we need to discuss the security implications of what's happened here." "Of course you do," James replied calmly. "But first, look at what your instruments are telling you. This isn't a weapon to be classified or controlled. It's a demonstration of something far more important." The officials' own monitoring equipment confirmed what the scientists had been documenting. The quantum harmony effect wasn't just stable, it was beneficial. The fabric of reality itself was stronger, more resilient where the field touched. They'll try to suppress this, Elizabeth warned through her quantum link. Claim it's a matter of national security. We need to ensure the data reaches the scientific community before that happens. Margaret's screens showed more vehicles arriving, these bearing diplomatic markings. "International observers," she reported. "Word is spreading faster than they can contain it." James watched the growing crowd through the barn's windows, seeing the mix of scientific curiosity and institutional concern. The truth is already out there. What we've demonstrated here can't be hidden or controlled. That's the whole point. Sarah coordinated with Elizabeth's team, ensuring their documentation was comprehensive. The quantum lattice structure, the harmonic resonance patterns, the strengthened space-time fabric, it all proves that cooperation with quantum forces is more powerful than attempted domination. The military officials conferred among themselves, clearly struggling with the implications of what they were witnessing. Their own sensors confirmed that this technology wasn't a weapon to be controlled, but a fundamental shift in humanity's relationship with quantum mechanics. "More data coming in from the outer perimeter," one of Elizabeth's researchers called out. "The harmonic field is creating some kind of cascading positive effect. Normal space-time is actually becoming more stable as the quantum resonance spreads." James moved to the main control station, making subtle adjustments to their monitoring systems. That's because we're not fighting against natural quantum fluctuations anymore. We're working with them, helping them find their natural harmonic state. Through their sophisticated sensors, they could see the last of the enemy forces disappearing into the distance. Their weapon, designed to tear reality apart, had instead become part of a demonstration that would reshape humanity's approach to quantum physics. The scientific implications are staggering, Elizabeth's hologram observed. This isn't just a new technology, it's a completely new paradigm for understanding quantum mechanics. Military helicopters circled overhead, their sensors capturing data they couldn't quite believe. The quantum harmony effect defied traditional classification. It wasn't a weapon, a defense system, or a power source, but something entirely new. They're trying to understand it in old terms, Sarah noted, watching the various officials struggle with their observations. But what we've shown here doesn't fit into their existing categories. James nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. Because they're still thinking in terms of control and domination. They need to learn what I discovered 15 years ago, that true power comes from working with natural forces, not trying to bend them to our will. Margaret's security feeds showed more arrivals. Scientists from major universities, representatives from international research institutions, observers from global physics organizations. The revolution in quantum mechanics could not be contained. The data is already being transmitted to research centers worldwide, Elizabeth reported. Quantum harmony isn't just a theory anymore. It's a demonstrated reality that can't be suppressed or denied. The morning sun continued its rise, its light creating spectacular effects as it interacted with the quantum-stabilized storm. The farm that had hidden revolutionary technology for 15 years had become the birthplace of a new scientific understanding. "Look at these readings," one of the military scientists exclaimed, studying their instruments. "The quantum field isn't just stable. It's actually strengthening normal physical laws, making reality itself more resilient." James guided another group of researchers through their observations. That's the true potential of quantum harmony. Not destruction or dominance, but enhancement and protection, working with the fundamental forces of reality instead of against them. Sarah coordinated the growing database of observations and measurements. Every new reading confirms it. This isn't just a defensive technology. It's a whole new way of understanding and working with quantum mechanics. The military officials continued their concerned discussions, but their own data was undermining traditional security arguments. How could you classify or control something that made reality itself more stable and secure? The quantum harmony effect isn't just local anymore, Margaret reported, monitoring their long-range sensors. It's creating some kind of network effect, strengthening the fabric of space-time well beyond our immediate area. Elizabeth's team worked frantically to document every aspect of the transformation. "This changes everything," she said through her quantum link. "Not just our understanding of physics, but our whole approach to technological development." The farm had become a nexus of scientific revolution, its humble buildings now surrounded by some of the finest minds in physics. What had begun as an attempt to destroy knowledge had instead sparked its unstoppable spread. Through their sophisticated monitoring systems, they could see the quantum harmony effect continuing to evolve and spread. The transformed energy of the Cascade weapon, once meant for destruction, now powered a demonstration of nature's fundamental unity. The midday sun cast its light through the quantum-stabilized atmosphere above Cooper's farm, creating prismatic effects as it interacted with the harmonic field. The barn, once a hidden sanctuary for revolutionary research, had transformed into the center of a scientific revolution that would reshape humanity's understanding of quantum mechanics. Latest readings confirm sustained stability, Sarah announced, coordinating data from multiple research teams. The quantum harmony effect isn't just maintaining itself, it's actually growing stronger as more natural forces interact with it. James moved between groups of scientists, each studying different aspects of the phenomenon. Notice how the quantum lattice responds to natural fluctuations, he explained to a team from CERN. It's not fighting against quantum uncertainty, it's embracing it, channeling it into constructive patterns. Elizabeth's holographic presence had been joined by representatives from major research institutions worldwide. The implications for particle physics alone are revolutionary, a Nobel laureate observed. This completely changes our understanding of quantum coherence. Movement at the outer perimeter, Margaret reported from her security station. The military is establishing a wider containment zone, but they're letting scientific personnel through. Through the barn's sophisticated sensors, they could see a steady stream of new arrivals. Physicists, mathematicians, quantum researchers from every major institution. The word had spread faster than any attempt to contain it. The harmonic resonance. Patterns are exhibiting some kind of multiplicative effect, one of Elizabeth's researchers called out. Each new interaction with natural quantum fluctuations strengthens the overall field stability. James nodded, making minor adjustments to their monitoring systems. That's the key principle I discovered 15 years ago. Quantum forces don't need to be controlled or suppressed. They naturally seek harmony if given the proper framework. Sarah coordinated with international research teams, ensuring data was being properly shared and verified. The transformed energy from their weapon attempt, it's become a perfect example of the principle. Destructive force converted into constructive harmony. Military officials huddled with government scientists, their classified sensors confirming what every other instrument showed. This wasn't a weapon to be contained or a secret to be suppressed. It was a fundamental breakthrough in humanity's relationship with quantum mechanics. The stability field is affecting other physical forces, a physicist from MIT reported excitedly. Gravity, electromagnetic fields, even strong and weak nuclear forces. They're all showing enhanced coherence within the harmonic zone. James guided another group through their observations. Watch what happens when we introduce new quantum fluctuations, he demonstrated, making slight adjustments to their systems. The harmonic field smoothly incorporated the new energy, strengthening its patterns. Elizabeth's quantum link carried growing excitement from the international scientific community. James, research centers around the world are already replicating your basic principles. The quantum harmony effect can be generated on smaller scales. Margaret's screens showed more diplomatic vehicles arriving. Representatives from the UN Scientific Committee, she reported, and what looks like a Nobel Prize delegation. Through the barn's windows, they could see the farm had become a makeshift international research center. Temporary structures housed sophisticated monitoring equipment, while teams of scientists conducted measurements and observations. The quantum lattice structure isn't just maintaining stability, Sarah noted, studying new data streams. It's teaching us something fundamental about the nature of reality itself. Look at these coherence patterns. James moved to the main control station, making subtle adjustments to enhance their observations. The universe naturally tends toward harmony, he explained. We just needed to stop fighting against that tendency and learn to work with it instead. The military presence remained, but their role had shifted from containment to protection. Their own scientists had confirmed that this technology represented something beyond traditional security classifications. More data coming in from particle accelerators worldwide. Elizabeth reported through her quantum link. They're seeing enhanced stability in their quantum experiments. The principles you've demonstrated here are already changing how we approach high-energy physics. The transformed weapon site had become a point of particular interest. Scientists studied how the quantum cascade effect, meant for destruction, had been converted into a source of stable, constructive energy. The harmonic field is showing some kind of intelligent adaptation, a quantum computing expert observed. It's not just maintaining patterns, it's optimizing them, finding more efficient ways to maintain quantum coherence. James watched the various teams work, seeing decades of theoretical physics being rewritten in real time. "This is what I hoped for," he said quietly to Sarah. "Not just proving the technology works, but showing there's a better way to approach these forces." Margaret's security feeds showed the last of the enemy forces had completely withdrawn. Their attempt to suppress this knowledge had instead catalyzed its worldwide distribution. Research centers in Europe and Asia are reporting successful harmonic field generation, Elizabeth announced. Smaller scale, but showing the same fundamental properties. The technology is already replicating itself. The quantum-stabilized storm continued its perfect patterns overhead, now serving as a visible demonstration for arriving scientists. What had begun as a weapons test had become a teaching tool for a new understanding of physics. The military's quantum weapons program is being completely restructured, Sarah reported, reading new intelligence. They're shifting focus from destructive applications to harmonic enhancement technologies. James guided another group of researchers through the barn's sophisticated systems. "The most important thing to understand is that we're not controlling these forces," he explained. "We're providing a framework for their natural tendencies toward harmony." International observers continued to arrive, their instruments confirming what electromagnetic readings worldwide were already showing. The quantum harmony effect was something entirely new in humanity's technological development. The scientific papers are already being published, Elizabeth said through her quantum link. Peer review is happening in real time as more research centers confirm the basic principles. This knowledge can't be contained or classified. Margaret's screens showed news helicopters gathering at the edge of the containment zone. "The story's going public," she reported. "Major science publications are preparing special editions. The revolution in quantum mechanics is about to go mainstream." James watched it all with quiet satisfaction, seeing the peaceful application of his life's work spreading faster than any attempt at weaponization. "Sometimes," he observed to Sarah, "the best way to protect knowledge is to share it so widely it can't be suppressed." The farm had become a symbol of scientific transformation, its quantum harmony field demonstrating principles that would reshape humanity's understanding of fundamental forces. What had been hidden for 15 years was now illuminating the future of physics. Through their sophisticated monitoring systems, they could see the quantum harmony effect continuing to evolve and spread. Each new interaction with natural forces strengthened the field, proving that cooperation with quantum mechanics was more powerful than attempted domination. "We're seeing coherence effects at the macro scale now," a team from Cambridge reported. "The quantum harmony field is affecting classical physics in ways we never thought possible. The revolution that had started in a barn in Montana was spreading worldwide, unstoppable as the quantum principles it had revealed. James Cooper's work, meant to be destroyed, had instead become the foundation for a new era in human understanding. The sunset painted the quantum-stabilized sky in spectacular colors. Sarah stood with James and Margaret on the farmhouse porch, watching the continuous stream of scientists and researchers documenting what many were calling the greatest breakthrough in physics since Einstein's relativity. Hard to believe just 24 hours ago I was a stranded executive seeking shelter from a storm, Sarah said, smiling at the memory. Now I'm part of a scientific revolution. James nodded, his weathered farmer's appearance now barely concealing the brilliant mind that had changed quantum physics forever. Sometimes the best discoveries come from unexpected places. Just like quantum forces themselves, you can't control where they lead, you can only be ready to follow the harmony. The quantum field continued its perfect patterns above the farm, now a permanent demonstration of nature's fundamental unity. Research teams had already confirmed similar effects being generated at laboratories worldwide, each success building on the principles James had discovered. The weapon they tried to use, Margaret observed, watching distant helicopters circle the perimeter. It's being decommissioned. All quantum research is shifting toward harmonic applications. Elizabeth's final transmission carried satisfaction. The scientific community has everything they need now. Your work will be developed in the open, peer-reviewed and properly understood. No one can suppress this knowledge anymore. As night fell over Cooper's farm, the quantum-enhanced stars seemed to shine with new brightness, their light interacting with the harmonic field in ways that reminded everyone who saw it that the universe held more wonders than dangers. "What will you do now?" Sarah asked James, knowing his peaceful sanctuary had become the center of worldwide attention. "Keep farming," he replied with a slight smile. "Keep researching. Keep showing people that working with nature's forces is better than trying to dominate them." He looked at the transformed barn, now a permanent research station, but this time I won't have to do it alone. The story of how a stranded woman discovered the most important scientific breakthrough of the century spread rapidly, capturing imaginations worldwide. The peaceful farm in Montana became a symbol of how humanity's greatest achievements come not from conflict and control, but from harmony and understanding. James Cooper's quantum harmony technology revolutionized multiple fields, from energy production to environmental protection. But perhaps its greatest impact was in showing that there was always a better way forward, one that worked with nature's fundamental forces instead of against them. The night that began with an attempted weapon test ended by launching a new era in human understanding. And it all started because a woman seeking shelter from a storm found something far more important than safety. She found hope for humanity's future. If this story touched you, and you want to hear more incredible tales of discovery, transformation, and the triumph of wisdom over force, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Tomorrow, we've got another amazing story that will change how you see the world. This is just the beginning of our journey together, exploring the extraordinary moments that reshape human history. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for being part of our community of storytellers and truth seekers. Until next time, remember that the greatest discoveries often come when we least expect them, and the most powerful forces in the universe tend toward harmony, not destruction.